Imagine, if every second of your life was literally money. If the glowing clock on your arm didn't just tell time, it measured your existence. When it hits zero, so do you. In a world built on this cruel truth, rain falls over dim, crowded streets. Neon lights flicker against cracked walls. A woman runs through the night, gasping for air, eyes wide with panic. Her arm clock flashes frantically. 00:01:09. 00:01:08. The numbers keep falling like a silent executioner's countdown. She slips on the wet pavement but forces herself up, desperate. It doesn't matter. Time catches her. As the clock strikes zero, her body freezes mid-step. Life drains away instantly. Her clock goes dark. Will Salis watches from the shadows, not shocked, just numb. In the ghetto, this scene happens every day. People don't live with time here. They run against it. He checks his own clock. 23 hours left. Same as every morning. His mother works endless shifts just to buy a few extra minutes. She comes home exhausted, but alive for now. His father died years ago when his clock ran out mid-shift. Will learned young, time is money. But deep inside, he knows the truth. This isn't living. It's a race you're destined to lose. His face is lean, marked by years of struggle and silent fury. He's tough, quick-witted, with the kind of humor people develop when survival becomes routine. Everyone in the ghetto is alone because time is selfish. You can't give it away without risking your own life. Trust is dangerous when a single second can decide everything. That night, Will sits in a smoky bar with a few friends. The air smells of cheap liquor and frustration. Then, something unusual happens. A man walks in wearing an expensive coat, clean and calm, the kind of man who doesn't belong here. On his arm, over 100 years. His clock glows like a beacon. The bar falls silent. Eyes lock onto him like predators spotting prey. In the ghetto, flashing that much time is asking to be killed. Will notices Fortis, a notorious gang leader, watching the man with a wolfish grin. His gang moves like hyenas, circling their target. Will knows what's coming. The man will be dead before dawn unless someone intervenes. He doesn't think twice. His instincts act first. Outside, in a dark alley, the gang corners the rich man, Henry Hamilton. They shove him, sneer at his glowing clock. Will moves fast. He twists a thug's arm, snatches the time gun, punches another in the throat, kicks the third into a wall. The fight is quick, brutal. Will grabs Henry and pulls him deeper into the shadows. They run through back streets until they reach an abandoned factory. Inside, Henry breathes hard but smiles faintly. Will snaps. You know how dangerous it is here. What the hell were you thinking? Henry answers calmly. I wasn't trying to escape. I came here to stop running. His tone carries a strange weight, something between sadness and exhaustion. Night stretches long. In the quiet factory, Henry shares a truth that shakes Will. This system was built to keep people like you desperate, he explains. If everyone had time, no one would die, and the whole structure would collapse. So they control time not to save lives, but to keep power. His eyes are tired, almost serene. I've lived long enough, Will. Too long. Morning light leaks through broken windows. Will wakes to find Henry sitting on the edge of the roof, motionless. His own arm clock now flashes with over a century. Henry's is empty. He's gone by choice. He gave Will all his time and let himself slip away. Will's heart pounds. In one night, he's gone from a poor factory worker to a man richer than anyone in his world could imagine. But there's no joy. Only weight. A heavy, burning question. Why him? He doesn't have time to think. He runs through the city like a man possessed, heart hammering, boots splashing through puddles. He needs to find his mother. He wants to give her time, enough to live without fear, enough to finally stop running. But on the other side of the city, his mother's time is running out. She tries to catch a bus, but she's a few minutes short of the fare. The bus pulls away. Her clock ticks down. She begins to run. Will sees her across the road. Their eyes meet. Both sprint toward each other, breath ragged, feet pounding the concrete. Rain falls harder, blurring the world. 5 seconds left. 3, 2. Their hands stretch out. 1 step away. And then 0. She collapses into his arms, lifeless. Her clock goes dark. He screams silently. The world slows to a crawl. The rain, the neon lights, the distant city noise, it all fades, leaving only the sound of his own heartbeat. He holds her like he's holding time itself, slipping through his fingers. In that moment, something inside Will shatters. He doesn't cry. He hardens. He looks at the glowing years on his arm, then at the empty one on hers. The injustice burns through him like fire. The system took everything. Now, he has nothing left to lose. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about breaking the race entirely. And that's where Will Salas's real story begins, with a man who suddenly has more time than he ever dreamed, and no one left to share it with. A man who looks at the system not with fear, but with defiance. The clock on his arm ticks steadily, but for the first time, it isn't counting down to his end. It's counting down to the system's. Will didn't waste a second. With a century glowing on his arm, he crossed borders most people never dreamed of approaching. Each checkpoint demanded decades as toll, the price of entry into the world of those who never ran, never aged, never feared. As he moved deeper through the time zones, the city transformed. The cracked pavements gave way to smooth marble. Rusted walls turned to gleaming towers. People walked slowly here, every step deliberate, like time itself bowed before them. Their clocks shone with centuries, but their faces were bored, detached, untouched by urgency. It wasn't just a different place, it was a different universe, one where life had forgotten its pulse. Will walked among them like a wolf in silk. He kept his head down, but his eyes observed everything. He saw men sipping wine as if they had centuries to finish a glass, women laughing softly in gardens that stretched like endless mirrors. Their ease made him uneasy. He'd spent his life counting seconds. They spent theirs wasting them. His first stop was a high-stakes casino, a palace of glass and gold perched above the city like a god's throne. Here, time wasn't just currency. It was spectacle. People wagered decades in seconds, laughing when they lost, indifferent when they won. Will sat at a poker table, surrounded by men who carried centuries like loose change. He played with the same sharp instincts that had kept him alive in the ghetto. Every glance, every twitch, every hesitation became a weapon. Where they were careless, he was calculating. His hands moved like lightning, his bets bold and precise. In minutes, he turned their arrogance into his advantage. Time flowed onto his clock like water down a riverbed. And then he saw her, Sylvia Weiss. She stood at the edge of the room like a painting come alive, elegant yet restless, her eyes holding a spark that didn't belong in this stagnant world. She watched him win, intrigued not by his wealth but by his energy. Their meeting was brief but electric. She challenged him with a playful smirk. He answered with sharp, teasing humor. For the first time, Will wasn't just surviving. He was playing their game and winning. But the walls of luxury had ears, and Will's sudden fortune didn't go unnoticed. Timekeepers were already on his trail. The party at the Weiss mansion glittered like a galaxy of wealth. Will moved through the rooms in a borrowed suit, blending in while every sense remained alert. Philippe Weiss, Sylvia's father and one of the most powerful men in this world, greeted him with the smile of a man who owns everything, including the air people breathe. Conversations dripped with veiled threats and elegant cruelty. Will answered carefully, a stranger walking on thin ice. Then Raymond Leon appeared. The timekeeper's presence sliced through the glamour like a blade. He was lean, stern, his eyes sharp with suspicion. He approached Will with the calm of a hunter closing in on prey. "You're a long way from home," he said softly. Before Will could respond, the trap closed. Guards moved in. The music kept playing, but the tension was palpable. Will's mind raced. There was no time for explanations. There never was. In a sudden, daring move, he grabbed Sylvia, pulled her close and pressed the time gun to her head, not to hurt her but to force his escape. Her gasp turned into a stunned laugh. She wasn't used to being surprised. They ran. Through hallways, down staircases, out into the night. Guards shouted. Bullets cracked through the air. A car waited outside, sleek and silent. Will pushed Sylvia into the passenger seat and slammed his foot on the accelerator. The vehicle shot forward, the city lights blurring into streaks. Sylvia clutched the seat, half terrified, half exhilarated. "You're insane," she yelled over the roaring wind. Will grinned. "Maybe. But I'm not dead." The chase tore through city streets, luxury turning into shadows as they crossed back into the ghetto. Sylvia stared out the window as the scenery decayed. The clean streets gave way to crowded, crumbling blocks. Faces replaced polished indifference with desperate urgency. For the first time, she saw the other side of the world she'd taken for granted. They hid in an abandoned building, breathing hard, the thrill slowly giving way to an unexpected silence. Sylvia's gaze softened as she watched children sharing minutes like candy, families clinging to each other, terrified of running out. She whispered, "They live like this every day?" Will nodded. "And die like this too." Something shifted inside her. She had always known her world was unfair, but she'd never felt it like this. Raw, immediate, undeniable. Sitting beside Will, she began to understand the fire in his eyes. Their decision didn't come with grand speeches or dramatic gestures. It was a quiet, fierce agreement. They wouldn't just run, they'd fight back. Together, they started hitting time banks, small at first. Quick, clever heists where Will's speed and Sylvia's inside knowledge made them unstoppable. They distributed stolen time to the poor, watching neighborhoods light up with hope. People laughed for the first time in years. Lines at checkpoints broke. The streets began to pulse with a new rhythm. But the timekeepers were closing in. Raymond Leon didn't stop. He tightened the noose. Every robbery made them bolder, but it also made them bigger targets. Will and Sylvia knew they couldn't just steal time forever. They had to strike at the heart. The main time bank loomed like a fortress, holding 1,000,000 years inside its steel belly. One final job. One impossible plan. They moved like shadows through the corridors, every step planned, every risk calculated. The alarms screamed, guards swarmed, but they didn't stop. In the chaos, Will looked at Sylvia, adrenaline blazing through both of them. "This is insane," she breathed. "Welcome to the revolution," he shot back. They cracked the vault. Time poured out in streams of glowing numbers, flooding the city. Clocks on the arms of ordinary people surged. For once, the ghetto wasn't counting down, it was counting up. Raymond cornered them outside, time gun raised. For a tense moment, everything hung on a knife's edge. Then irony struck. His own clock started blinking. He'd spent too much time chasing and hadn't recharged. He staggered, reaching for more seconds that weren't there. The hunter became the hunted. He collapsed on the ground, his clock hitting 0. Will and Sylvia didn't look back. They drove toward the horizon, leaving a system in chaos behind them. Gates opened, checkpoints failed. People poured into places they'd never been allowed to enter. Time, for once, belonged to everyone. As dawn broke, the world looked different. Not fixed, not yet, but alive in a way it hadn't been before. Will and Sylvia stood together on a cliff, watching the sun rise over a city that was finally breathing. The race wasn't over. But for the first time, it wasn't rigged. And their story was only just beginning.